Hello, I'm Tavian Hunter, the Library and Archive Manager of the Stuart Hall Library at iniva. The library is a publicly accessible reference collection of unique contemporary art and visual culture, predominantly focused on artists, writers, creative producers of African, Caribbean, Asian, and Latin American descent. We collect critical theory books on diasporic thought, intersectional identity theory and globalization, alongside a rare collection of journals and magazines that are important to the UK Black Arts movement. And today I'm here with Naomi Hart for episode 3 of Behind the Display. So Naomi is currently studying an MA in Library and Information Studies at UCL. And she's on placement at the Stuart Hall Library with us due to her interest in art librarianship. Naomi not only has a degree in BA English from the University of Exeter, but she's worked in a number of different libraries, from the Bodleian Law Library and the London College of Fashion Library. And as part of her placement, she's been learning about collection development, management, and cataloguing materials, as well as conducting some research into our activist and artist zines collection. So I'm going to hand over to Naomi to speak a little bit about our collections.
Okay, thanks, Tavian. So this presentation is called Behind the Display, Punk Zines in Stuart Hall Library. Stuart Hall Library's contemporary collection features around 400 artist and activist zines, which address the subject areas of cultural identity and diversity, visual culture, and platforming underrepresented voices. Zines are DIY self-published magazines, typically with a small circulation and are affordable or free. Zines are rooted in social histories of protest movements, radical subcultures, and projecting the voices of marginalized communities, and fit well within the library's collection development policy. While browsing through the zines, which are kept on an open shelf by the entrance to the library, it caught my attention that many of them were about punk music and culture, and the intersections of punk with other themes, such as race and identity, feminism, female readerships, and queer culture. Punk is a countercultural movement that centres on punk music and other forms of creative expression with an anti-establishment ethos that promotes rebellion, non-conformity, and individual freedom. According to the writer Chloe Arnold, quote, "In the 70s and 80s, the main hub of zine culture became the punk scene in London, LA, and New York. And in the 1990s, the feminist riot girl movement emerged as, quote, an alternative to the male-driven punk world of the past, encouraging women and girls to start bands and make zines themselves. An example of this is Electra, a zine by Jane Collins that focuses on music and women." The third issue of Electra, published in 2001, includes an interview with Alison Wolfe, lead singer of the riot girl punk band Bratmobile. It struck me how some of the unique ways that zines are made evoke characteristics of handmade punk fashion. For example, Bare Fuckeries by Abundance Matanda is bound in recycled red fabric and held together with safety pins. This zine explores Black British identity, mental health, cultural terrorism, and language, primarily through poetry. One particularly powerful poem, Skeng Punks, is about Mark Duggan, a Black British man who was shot and killed by police in Tottenham in 2011. And this is the Skeng Punks page. With Skeng meaning weapon or hyped, the poem incentivizes people to be Skeng punks and organize strategies to actively make change. Music journalist and Gold Blade singer John Robb once quoted about Polystyrene, lead singer of punk rock band X-Ray Spex, that, quote, "The great thing about punk was that it tore the fabric a bit, and when any kind of cultural things are formed, you can make the rules up as you go along." So with that in mind, I'm going to highlight some of the punk zines in Stuart Hall Library and how the zinesters, creators of zines, describe their material. 6 issues of Shotgun Seamstress are held in a collective volume at Stuart Hall Library, and in Shotgun Seamstress, Osa Toya explores their own identity and the marginalization of Black punks within the punk community. In the first issue, they write this, quote, I think that in predominantly white movements, including the punk scene and activist circles, there are lots of judgments and assumptions about Black people and a total lack of understanding about what real Black people, and specifically Black women, have to do to make it through the day. I noticed the development of the zine's tagline between its first and final issues, changing from, quote, a zine by and for Black punks to, quote, Shot Comes Seamstress is a zine by, for, and about Black punks, queers, feminists, artists, musicians, and activists, which may indicate that the zienster was trying to clarify and expand audience inclusivity. Zines express a wide range of reflections and identity. For example, Different Times is a memoir of Simon Murphy's time in the punk drag band 6 Inch Killers, comprised of 5 drag queens. The zine describes the clubs they went to, such as The Way Out, and the wider drag and queer scenes in London, and is filled with stylish black and white illustrations that enhance the storytelling. You can see one of them here. Simon, whose drag name was Mona Complainer, says this, quote, I did drag from 1992 to 2001, and most of that time I was in a band, an all-drag punkish band, 6 Inch Killers. This scene is mostly about me and the band, but it's also about the drag, trans, queer, and music scenes in London that we were part of. Many punk scenes in Stuart Hall Library are grounded by a feminist perspective. Adventures Close to Home is a fanzine about the Slits, a female punk band that formed in London in 1976. According to Melissa Steiner, the Slits were the OG punk, post-punk, girl punk, dub punk, urban feral indie rock punk band. I admire how this scene shines a light on the gender biases in the world of punk rock music reviewing, which privileges male groups above women's contributions to the movement. Steiner writes that, quote, the Slits have a bad rep with mainstream publications who either ignored them altogether or use them as backdrops to bands like The Clash and the Sex Pistols, or focus on describing how they looked and how bad they sounded. Steiner highlights particular reviews for evidence. By contrast, she celebrates the Slits sound, which she believes intentionally defies categorization in comparison with male punk rock bands that, in her opinion, became facsimiles of each other. By nature, zines are experimental. Published in Japan, Playback Ladyzine is creatively structured like a vinyl record around 11 female punk and post-punk songs that have been selected by Constance Lechier and Ayaka Miyaki. The writers share their personal relationships to the songs, nostalgic memories of first hearing them, and think about punk more widely. For example, Aya meditates that, quote, many punk songs have been sung in protest against prejudice towards sexualities and untold gender roles. This scene comes with a mix CD to listen to while you're reading it, which is quite fun. And I've added these songs to the playlist accompanying this presentation. The Hysterics is edited by Rachel House, but it includes contributions from other creatives. The zine pays homage to a fictional 1970s/1980s feminist punk band called the Hysterics, and acts as an imagined archival effort to recover their lost, albeit mythologized history. Rachel House calls out to her audience for information about their story. Quote, so I'm appealing to you. Have you got any information to share with me? Contributors to the zine add to this archival recovery effort through writing about memories of the band and memorabilia. I like how this creative zine speaks to lost histories of female music groups and criticizes the red tape that can limit access to archives. Hunkerpages addresses accessibility to punk from a different angle by being a directory for zinesters and other promoters who, quote, contribute something to the punk scene. Designed by the zinester Chris X, it's essentially the yellow pages for all things punk, from music to reading. Something I like about this zine is how it reaches out to its audience by repeatedly welcoming feedback. The message is, quote, basically just talk to me. I don't bite, and I'm pretty dependent on your input. Many of the zines discussed here ask for audiences to get in touch and share feedback. They often include sort of an email address, an Instagram, a website, so that you really can get in touch with them. Reading a zine is an active process that connects readers and zinesters. Whether you're a novice or experienced zine reader, I would really recommend browsing through the brilliant collection at Stuart Hall Library. Punk culture is just one theme in a wealth of subjects to explore. This slide displays the project playlist, which is inspired by reading the zines. So you can go and have a listen if you want to. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Naomi. That was a really informative presentation and really highlighting the range of different themes that are present within the Stuart Hall Library zine collection and just how wide-ranging they actually are from across the world. So I hope that everyone will take the opportunity to drop into the library and explore the collections further. So the Stuart Hall Library is in Pimlico in London, and it's open Tuesday to Friday, 10 till 5. So thank you again and hope to see you all soon.